My name is Cody Watson.
Yeah, Elaine Farrar.
This is for the 40th anniversary video. Okay, first, just starting off, where were you born?
I was born in Los Angeles, a long time ago, 1926.
And how did you slowly work your way towards Arizona?
Well, I was married at the time that we came here,
Mm-hmm.
and I had a child who was post-polio.
Mm-hmm.
So at that time there was no smog and everything was wonderful here, and that's generally it. And then my husband found with the same insurance company, and we moved to the Scottsdale area.
Mm-hmm.
We were there 12 years, and then in Prescott, 35.
Okay.
So.
I'm going to turn this on real quick. Now, did you become involved with Yavapai right when you got here, or were you here for a while after?
We had started to build a little cabin,
Mm-hmm.
probably in about 1965. And then Yavapai was under construction.
Mm-hmm.
And in 68, I met with Mr. Branson, who was the art department,
Mm-hmm.
the chair and the teacher of everything.
Mm-hmm.
And he was still teaching in what is now the complex for the county. It was the old high school
Mm-hmm.
building. And I talked with him in there. He was having some drawing and some painting classes. And then he showed me some classes in an old building at the Yavapai Veterans Administration. And that some of the classes, you'd go over the hill because the art department wasn't finished yet. And he was just really a wonderful person. And so when I came up here in December of '69, he talked with me, and I started doing the extension classes. You know, I'd go over the hill to Cottonwood at the Clemenceau School, and I'd go to Baghdad, and I'd go to Black Canyon City. And then I had one class over what is now the cafeteria, and up in where we have the language arts buildings now.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of how I started. And Mr. Branson is a very creative person, and it was a wonderful time because everything was growing, and they were building programs, you know, and nobody was territorial at the time, and we'd have some of these higher education and art conferences, and we would just come back and talk about how lucky we were because it was like family, and we were building the best art programs. And we carried that reputation for quite a long time. He built extensive fiber programs, for example, that had everything from collecting the wool to carding it, spinning it, weaving it, using it in collages. I mean, not collages, but assemblages and things. He fed one program into another, and extensive stitchery programs and knotting, and I think we still have a weaving program here now. Mm-hmm. But everything was, with Mr. Branson, just take it all the way as far as it can go. And he responded to the community. And it was wonderful, you know, because everything was just growing. And Vince Kelly and we graduated. He got his MFA, and I got my MA at ASU in '69. And so he came up about the same time. Mm-hmm. And so then, instead of just Mr. Branson, Dick Markison came from California, and he was in jewelry and sculpture. And then Vince Kelly came up, and he was in the ceramics, and he arranged to buy the equipment for glass blowing. Did you know he had one of the greatest glass blowing programs in the state?
Mr. Peterson was telling me about that.
Yeah. And I don't think that program exists anymore. And then I was Jim Burns was the division chairman, and Ed Branson department chairman. And then in 1973, I became the art department chairman, and Ed Branson was division chairman. Mm-hmm. And it was a great combination because both of us working in the program with arts, we kind of understood each other. Didn't always agree, but we understood each other. And And then it was about in that time, I don't know, it was 70 or 3 or 4, when Mr. Peterson came. And he was part-time art department and then part-time commercial artist for the school, with all the programs and all the things for the sports events and whatever. And then eventually just it moved into the art department as a commercial art section. And so he developed the commercial art part of it. And we had Myrta Hamilton, who came down from NAU, and as a part of her master's program helped us set up printmaking. And then Pat Clark came out from Minnesota, very fine artist and instructor there, and she worked with us. But we only had one press, and you could break it down for lithography or etching, and so we had one semester of lithography because you just couldn't keep breaking the press down, you know. Later on, we had a great art department, and later on the art department bought a second press, and then they also bought benches, you know, for the gallery and stuff like that. Ed actually started programs to go and take the bus and go over to the Los Angeles area. At first it started with Riverside, and the kids brought sleeping bags and bedrolls and slept on the basement of churches. But that started a program that within the art department we went every year in the spring, and we'd do visual. They'd see a stage play, or a musical. We'd see the LA County Art Museum and Farmers Market, and it was an experience for 3 days and 2 nights, sleeping on the bus, 2 of those nights. And then it ventured down the coast, and we saw things in Costa Mesa and Del Mar and down San Diego, and we made a loop with the bus. And it was, like I say, wonderful, because all these programs were developing, and at the same time, a lot of people who had never experienced the large galleries like the LA County Art Museum were able to go and just experience something, maybe if it's just once in a lifetime. And so I think it was just really, that first 10 years was just the most exciting. Not just because I was there, but I think a lot of it had to do with Mr. Branson. He was so excited about people liking art and developing their talents, and then, you know, a lot of innovations since then. They built the performing arts, and part of the arts were in that building, and now I understand all the visual arts are over there too. But we had, even when I went over the hill every Friday to have extension classes in Cottonwood, now we have another campus there. No, and it's a beautiful campus with full program. So a lot's happened from seeds that were planted then. Yeah, and it's wonderful to have to come back once in a while. And I was pleased because to be made faculty emeritus, because, you know, I came back for a couple of the graduations, and it sort of weaned me away a little bit. It's kind of hard to give up students and teaching and all at once. And but it's grown, and Prescott's grown, but I think everything's grown in a positive direction for the school. And so, do you have favorite programs or things like that?
I'm more involved with the art department, and that's why they kind of help match us up.
Oh, yeah.
Both being interested in the arts.
Mm-hmm.
What was your primary art that kind of brought you into that department? What was your primary?
Well, I taught painting, watercolor, and oil acrylic. And then when I first started, I had 3 traveling classes, and then I had a design class. And then I moved into the painting. At Branson, loved the drawing classes, and was very strong in those. And then when the printmaking developed. I had taken printmaking at ASU, and it was an interest, and so after developing the watercolor class, which was an extension of painting, we developed printmaking, and then the art club got the second press, and then they had also bought a little press at auction when Emory Riddle wasn't there, but the Prescott College was there, and then it folded, and we had a big auction, and so the art club bought, it's a old hand etching press, and but not too many students used that because they rather use the electrical one, and it was wider, took larger sheets of paper. So when we got that second press and drying racks and some more adequate rooms for acid baths and things like that, I did all the printmaking programs. So I was mostly oil acrylic, watercolor, and printmaking the last years that I was here. And on occasion, to substitute, I'd do an art history or something like that, but it wasn't my major area. But I think that, you know, you love all of the areas, but you excel because you love certain ones, you know. And you become advocates or appreciators of the others. And I took a jewelry class from Dick Markison so that I could really appreciate that part of it. And I loved it. But it wouldn't be something that I did as Dick does, professionally. And we were here, Deb Ford came up and opened up the photography area. And Gary Llewellyn came and worked in the photography area too. Last time I saw him, he was like in Chandler at the high school. And Merita Hamilton's was department chairman at Glendale Community College. So I went down every Friday to Glendale Community College, and all day Friday would teach a monoprint class. That was fun. So I guess painting, printmaking is pretty much my strength.
How did you see the art department at Yavapai as it grew affecting the rest of Yavapai College and as a whole?
I think the arts, both performing and visual arts, should be a part of everybody's life, because I feel they're languages that are more universal than those that we use to speak to one another. The same music in France, or here, or Germany, or Italy, wherever, that music's appreciated and understood by all, and I think that the visual arts are too. And I remember taking some French classes here, and the teachers from the other classes would always ask about the art, and sometimes try to trick me up with pictures and say, what kind of architecture is that, Gothic or Roman, or you know? But we exchanged a lot. I think it affected other programs in that sense. And I think that students, when we'd have art shows of student work, would bring other students to art to understand it, appreciate it, argue it, debate it, or defend it, whatever, and to understand that language better. When I first came to Prescott, which was like in '65, art was considered calendar art or pictures of family on the wall. And I think that the art department not only affected students, it affected the community, and professional people in the banks, attorneys, would come to the art shows, and we'd try to get them to give honorary purchase awards. And so they began to put art in the business place and in their homes. And I think in a way the college has done a great deal to broaden the perspective of people for languages, including performing and visual art language. And life is just so much richer with it. And I felt students that came out here from Embry-Riddle, actually some that went back to the Arabian countries afterwards. They were taking flying lessons there. They came out and took art classes.
Oh, yeah.
And that was interesting. And we had Japanese students, and though sometimes they were struggling with the English language, we found common ground in art, and I think that was good. And that all the students who maybe hesitated to speak to them on campus became friends through art. And so that was a nice influence, you know. And of course, you know that I have a prejudice. But I just really think that everyone should have some art, as well as economics and all the traditional things that we do teach. But it's broadening.
Do you think that, also from a different perspective, that Yavapai has positively affected the community?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I feel that it's an enrichment, and I also feel that there's a better understanding of what it takes to be an artist, that it's hard work.
Yeah.
I don't think Dr. Russo would mind if I mentioned this, but he was one of the presidents of our college, and he came into one of my painting classes, and then he said, "Elaine, I want to be able to paint portraits of my grandchildren." And I thought, oh, well, you know, portraits, you know, that's another dimension. You haven't had any training? No. No color study? No. I just want to learn to paint portraits. So I really felt that I was sort of hung up to dry at that point. And he was very good, but about he must have been halfway through the class. He came to me and he said, "I need to talk to you." And I said, "Okay." And he said, "You know, I've never failed anything in my life. And I don't want to fail a painting class. But I realize how much it takes to do a painting now." And so I think from that, nobody would just think it just pours out through your fingertips and off the brushes, and it's so easy for an artist. An artist works hard. You have to think about it, plan, you know, your composition the same as you would in a musical score. You have certain keys you work with, you know, the elements of design, and then there are a lot of dimensions of color that you work with, and as well as, you know, line and shape and texture and all the other things that we're working with. But he developed a great appreciation, which I think he passed on to others too, you know, that's not just a tricky thing. You just have to work at it and think about it. I had a lot of students who were retired. They came and gave their paintings and their brushes and everything and said, "Give these to somebody who wants to work harder than I want to work." You know, I thought it was just going to be fun. And it is fun, and it's exciting, and you're developing and creating, but it takes a lot of thinking. It just doesn't happen with a few tricks. Now, it might on TV, you know, with the magic strokes and all, but to get into really making your own creative interpretation of how you feel about your subject matter, it takes something more. And the more effort you put into it, the more exciting it is. You know, if something comes with ease, sometimes it isn't even appreciated.
Yeah.
You know, but I think it's affected the community, person to person to person, and person to family, and I think that it's helped people appreciate the performing arts, and when there are art exhibits, they begin to look for more. I've had some students that say, "Oh, last year everything was wonderful down in the square. This year I don't find everything wonderful." Why? And I said, "Because you begin to selectively see.
Right.
You see more in some things, and others it's just the subject matter, you know. They haven't said much about it.
Mm-hmm.
So I think a lot of things have happened with the community, with the students, and as a whole for Prescott. And I have been away from here when I retired from Yavapai. It was in '93.
Mm-hmm.
But then I still went to Prescott College as a graduate advisor. They started their Master of Fine Arts program
Mm-hmm.
at that time. And so, actually, I had my last student last June.
Mm-hmm.
And I promised my daughter that would be the last. But it's seeing someone learn and grow in the arts is exciting for the instructor.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like in many things you gain as much as your students. And you all share, you know, in the class. I think here we had no prerequisites.
Mm-hmm.
And that was difficult because you had to take people from where they were, which is either nowhere or some who had had private classes and some in high school. And but they began to understand each other, and some that didn't like abstract learned to like abstract and understand it. And some people that drew tiny, tiny little things in the corner of the canvas began to reach out and fill the canvas. Mm-hmm. And as they'd see other people and we'd talk about it, I saw a lot of exchange between elderly, middle-aged, and younger people. Mm-hmm. And real friends, you know, real friendships that developed there. And I think that's good. Yeah. And that probably only happens really in a community college like this, mm-hmm. where you have no prerequisite, no age limit. And someone said, yeah, the retired people come back and they raise all the grade averages in my other classes. But I said, yes, but their minds are slower and yours are quicker, so you have an advantage. But I think growing and the arts, they help you to see, and you develop patience. We live in an instant age, you know, and if you have to see something develop, it's hard to get some students that they want to finish at least a corner of it, you know, to see what it's going to look like. Mm-hmm. So you do develop a lot of things besides just have a product at the end, and that was exciting. It's exciting for the students and the instructors too. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Is there anything that you would change about how you went about your path through Yavapai College or life through Arizona?
How I went through it?
Yeah.
I think, you know, you're so busy sometimes that it's in looking back that you appreciate the things. Mm-hmm. And at the time I had 3 of my children at home, and I was raising them by myself. Mm-hmm. When I came to Prescott. I think I used to feel guilty because I left my children sometimes when I'd go at night, you know, get them fed and in bed, and on Tuesdays or Thursdays, I don't remember which, I would fly to Baghdad. Mm-hmm. And I took flying lessons at that time, and the pilot from Prescott Flying Service, who worked for the school to fly me there, I took lessons from him, and then ground school from Gladys Morrison here at Yavapai College. I don't know if she still teaches it or not. Sure. But anyway, I used to think that it was really, really awful to have to teach extension classes, you know, and be gone every night. Mm-hmm. And yet I'm not sure that's something I would change if I could, because I gained so much from it. And I remember times when they couldn't come back with the plane if it started to snow or rain, mm-hmm. and I'd have to sleep on somebody's couch in Baghdad, mm-hmm. or one of their kids would give me their bed, and they'd sleep on the couch, mm-hmm. and they'd get me in the morning, you know. Those are all wonderful experiences, so I don't think I'd trade them, you know. They were inconvenient, and when it was bad weather I had to drive, and that's 75 miles from here to Baghdad. And one time in bad weather, just once, it was snowing, and I got it to Skull Valley, and right there where the little store is, you turn and you're going to start coming back up, and I thought, I don't see any tracks on this road. And so I stopped at the little phone at the corner there by this, and I called the highway patrol and said, if you don't see any tracks coming out the other side in an hour, please come find me, because I'm starting out.
Right.
If I hadn't had, which was kind of a joke at the time, because I had those old square Volkswagen buses, and I'd had an accident, so the face was kind of mushed up on it. But it's the one thing that got me over that hill that night, and because, I still felt like I was floating. When I came out off Iron Springs, I was totally on the wrong side of the street, actually up in the parking lot area of some of the stores. But I think that so many times I've thought about that, and thought about the people that I went to, and the experience of appreciating life when I got home. And so, it's all enrichment. It's all enrichment. I don't think I really would change anything. I went back to get my doctorate in '85, and the only thing I might change is that was a really hard time to go back and get that, and still come back to classes, and I had to go down one night a week to finish my classwork, because I pushed and then I got sick. And I think that sometimes we should reach for our goals in a little slower pace, because when you push, kind of undo the physical part of you, Other than that, I did finally get it, but I had to take 1 credit hour of dissertation for 3 years before I could get it all together, But a lot of people have said it, and I know you've heard it. Sometimes through those trials, we come out with greater strengths and appreciation. I'm sure if it had all just gone so smooth, I wouldn't appreciate it as much now. But here at Yavapai, as far as the teaching, we felt so lucky. We had a wonderful group. As it grew bigger, the cohesiveness of the group wasn't as strong as in the beginning. Mm-hmm. That's natural. Yeah. And people were more defensive of their programs than the total. Mm-hmm. And that's a natural thing that happens too. So in a way, we weren't as close as in that first 10 years. That's just part of growth, It's like a small town. It's like Prescott. It's not as intimate as it was in 1968. Yeah. 40 years later, it's so changed. I can walk around the street and not know anybody. And when I first came, I was saying hi, 15 times just going down to the store. But no, it's been great. I don't regret any part of it. It's been good, been very good. The different administrative changes have been interesting and good. And we used to have great connections with the university, and I'm not sure if we still do. We had this HEART, H-E-A-R-T, Higher Education in Art. We'd at least meet once a year, compare programs, and have questions, and feed, to one another. And I hope those are still going. They were good.
It's actually a pretty good connection between here and the universities. They make it pretty simple to transfer over.
That's good.
Lots of things.
That's good. Because that was the only disappointment sometimes. Students would have credits that they wouldn't accept. But I'm sure, as you say, that's probably been corrected several years ago. Yeah. But it's been a wonderful part of my life, actually. Yeah. And it's funny. I came up, as faculty emeritus. I could still teach, but then I moved because my grandchildren and my daughter were down in the valley. And coming up here with 4 children was not as easy as my going down there.
Right.
Otherwise, I'd probably still be here and enjoy watching the growth and the development that's here. But it's wonderful. It was wonderful to get lost and not know where the cafeteria was today because you've changed so many things. I did come up for art shows, and I did know that you had a new library, and but I hadn't been up on this part of the campus to see all the changes here. I think I mentioned one time we had the art and architecture program where the architect from Tucson came. And so I looked around for those signs, but they're all gone now. The sculptures and the paintings, and unless they still have a painting on the wall by the swimming pool, then I didn't see any of the others. But every period of time has its own excitement, and I feel fortunate to have been there through that growth. As you're fortunate to be here through what you see, the growth that's going on. Yeah, so.
Oh, thank you very much.
Oh, yeah, you're welcome. Thank you.